Hey, this is Carrie with Canary Quilts, and we're on week 2 of the Dear Jane Quilt Along quilting of it. We are going to be working on row B, which is in the center of the quilt. So this week I won't be going into as much detail as I did in row A. I'm just going to be showing you the marking and the quilting. And to begin with, I am going to show you in EQ8 how I'm finding what I need to find to do this. So I am using EQ8 and I'm using the Dear Jane add-on, and I'm following that quilting to quilt my own Dear Jane quilt if you're new here. All right, so with EQ8 open, we need to open an existing project. And to get the quilting, we need the DJ4 quilting center blocks. And I'm going to open that. And what I was doing last time was just utilizing the sketchbook to see the quilting. I didn't open these individually and then come back to the sketchbook to open it again. I just went through the sketchbook. So right here we have A1, and you can find that down here on the left in the note card. You can find the name of the block. So I am going to skip ahead until I get to B1. And that's where we're going to start here. So it's just pretty much that easy to find the quilting lines in the EQ8 Dear Jane add-on. Now, the quilting lines don't tell you how far away they are, like from this circle. So I'm going to show you how I do it when I'm down at the quilt. So I'm not going to show you this as I go along. I do refer to it as I'm quilting. You know, you could have your computer open as you're quilting and look at each one, or you could possibly print them. That would be a lot of paper. But I just find it easiest to have my computer open, have the sketchbook open, and then just keep moving through all of these. And I do modify some of these quilting because I am not going to quilt through my applique. I will quilt around it, but I'm not going to quilt through it. So some of these blocks, if you remember, had an applique variation or a piecing variation. So I could see where maybe Dear Jane pieced it and then quilted through it. But if you're doing applique, you can quilt through it, but I'm choosing not to. So I will be making that decision as I go along. Like these circles are appliqued even though we're not quilting through them. So just to let you know, that's the modifications I will probably be making throughout this quilt. All right. That's about all we need to know for EQ8. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button, notification bell. If you're also new here, I do have an entire YouTube playlist of all the Dear Jane blocks that we put together. Last week I had a few comments that I'm using the friction pen, and I've never had a problem with the lines coming back after I iron them. But some people said if the quilt does get cold, the iron or the lines may show back up. So just keep that in mind, I guess, if you want to use a friction pen like I am. Otherwise, I'm going to continue to use the friction pen that erases with heat. So I have a list of all the items and accessories I use to quilt with in the description down below if you want to check them out. And let's get started on our quilting. All right, we're starting on week, actually, it would be week 2, row B, and I finished row A. You saw that, and I spent a lot of time in the beginning showing you how I'm set up to do this. A change that I made was, instead of sending my quilt horizontally like this, I'm going to try sending it vertically. So I'm going to go down the rows as I'm quilting. So now I have my quilt suspended over here to the left. I've got 3 suspension things that are holding it up, so that I just need to worry about what's on my lap and what's in front of me and not yanking around any of the quilt to the left. So you can see my suspension system in the first video, which I will have linked down below. I'm not going to go over everything I did in the first video. You saw that I used a friction marking pen to mark my lines that I was going to quilt on, and it erased beautifully with heat. I've got this friction pen, which is different than last week because it's a little thinner pen. So I'm going to try this one out this week and see how that goes. But we're going to start off with B1, and that's just going to have some straight lines as an X and then outside of each of the circles. So I'm going to start with my X. And I'm not pushing very hard. I'm going to mark all of them this time instead of doing a few at a time. So it looks like we're about 1/4 of an inch away from the circles there, so I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch away from the circles on the outside. All right. I don't know how well you can see that, but I have marked my lines out here. But that's how I figured it out. I did the X's, and then they were 1/4 of an inch at this distance, so I did 1/4 of an inch out here for all of those distances. So B2 is interesting because we're not stitching in the ditch. We are doing a straight line across through the middle of our blocks, these pie-shaped blocks. And then there is an interesting quilting out here. And I think if I do, let's see, 1/8 of an inch up on the short end, and then do 1/4 of an inch up right there, it'll give us that stitching line. So 1/8 and 1/4, so we can, so it's kind of like you're going up and then back down and then up. So that's how I'm going to do it, figure it out, and then I might just eyeball going through the center. Like that. There might be more scientific ways to do it, but I think this will work. And then I've got this one. So now I just need to finish this outside quilting. Or I mean marking. Probably could get a smaller ruler. There we go. There's the quilting for B2. So, like I said, I just eyeballed those centers, and 1/8 of an inch on the short side and 1/4 on the long side. B3 has a circle going all the way around. I don't think I will do that because I don't know that my hand is doing pretty good with straight lines, but doing an accurate circle around each. I could use the markings on this, but it looks like this side's wider than this side. So I think I'll just stitch in the ditch. I'll be able to see that easier. And then we've got some interesting lines going through it. So we're going to stitch in the ditch in the center lines, and then it looks like there's a line about 1/4 of an inch away all the way down. So 2 more from the center. And then the same on this side. And then we're going to do it here too. All right, so stitch in the ditch and then center, stitch in the ditch, and then these lines on each side. So that doesn't, I don't anticipate that one being too rough. All right, B4 has the corners. We're stitching like from corner to corner. And then we're going center stitches, but only in the center, but I'm going to use these outer corners to find my center out here and out here. And then I'm just going to draw in there and the same here. So we've got this crisscrossing pattern in there. And then we're literally just going down the center of each of these. Like that. And I am literally eyeballing it. And down the center of these, which is 1/4 of an inch. And she did a square, which means even though I took my marking to the end, I can erase it. I'm only going to stitch to this point there and then turn. Again, I'm coming in 1/4 of an inch. It seems to be a 1/2 an inch piece of fabric. There we go. There's my marks for B4. B5 is echoing out here. You probably can't see it, but I'm just echoing outside of there, and it'll just probably be easier when you're on there to do it, but I'm going to mark an echo out here outside of this diamond. And then we've got a straight line. Through the middle of the diamond. And again down the middle, which would be, looks like 1/4 of an inch of the sashing in the middle. And then again, we have, just like over here, we have a square in the outer sashing. And I'm going to go 3/8, I think. Actually, I think I'll go 1/4 of an inch. It's easier to measure, has the same effect. And again, this is a square, so we're only going to be sewing to these points and down to this point. So there you go. Don't forget the echoes on the outside. All right, B6. All right, we are literally going down the center of all of these whites. All of them. All the white. We're going right down the center. So again, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. There are corners that you can line up with. Like these have corners. Oops. And down the center. None of these lines really meet either, so. She stopped at the seam, so she's not really meeting any of the lines. And if your iron is warmed up and you put a line where you don't really want it, like I did right there, I'm erasing it and I put in another line. And then another square, just like the last two, on the outside. 1/4 of an inch is where I'm going. There we go. All right, that'll be interesting to quilt. Just have to stitch in the ditch to get to these other lines. All right, B7 is applique, so let's see what she wants us to do. Okay, she wants us to stitch. Oh goodness, I need to. I'm gonna have to applique that. I'm gonna have to finish it. Wow, I missed that. Totally missed that. Putting it together and everything. Anyway, she wants us to applique through a lot of this, and I don't want to go through my applique. So I am going to go right along the edge of all my applique. Even though the applique makes it stand out, that'll make it stand out even more. So then I'll come in here and do the same. Just go right along the edge. It's not really echo quilting, it's just on the outside. So I'm not even going to mark that, but that's what I'm going to do. Okay, I think we're on 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yep, this is B8. Okay, again, she wants me to do X's right through my applique. That's something I'm going to avoid, but everything else I can do. I'm going to mark inside the stars with lines. From the tips up here. And then the corners, corner to corner. And this is where I'm skipping going to the outside of the block so I don't sew through right through my applique. All right, so we've got lines going here and lines going here in an X. And then next she wants us to echo quilt right outside of here, kind of like this. I'm going to do that all the way on all 4 of them. And then she has another one if we want to do it. I don't know how good I am at circles, but there's another one out here. Like that. Hope you can see that. So, echo quilt here, and then put a line out there. So. Kind of a wide echo quilting. All right, so pretty easy, lines in the center and then out here. All right, B9 is stitching in the ditch everywhere except there is a seam right here in the middle, and then we're going to extend that to the edges. So I'm going to just draw these lines because I know that I'm stitching in the ditch in the rest of it. That way I know, just gives me a guide to get into the corner. All right, there's that one, stitch in the ditch, but go all the way extended to the corners. All right, B10 is all angled stitching, so we are gonna go, well, let's start out here. Again, we're gonna put a square out here. So I'm going 1/4 of an inch. And now we're going to do our angled stitching from right here, where we're just going to stitch up here and up here, where we're going to turn in our square, and we're going to go right down the middle. Like that, and then the same here. And then we're coming out and doing stitching with this line, that seam right there. And we're going to go all the way out to the stitching in the outside and the right out here. So I'm going from here to there. Same thing here, here to here. So that's all there is there. Stitching along these in the center, meeting at our square out in the outer part. All right, let's see, it's B11. We are going to stitch in the ditch, but make a square here. So I need to draw my lines out. So I'm extending this line, and then I'm going to extend this one so you can see that I'm creating that square. Okay, so we'll have a square stitched in here, and then right down the center. Like that. And then I am just gonna stitch around right next to my applique up here. It looks like we're going inside the applique and I don't want to, so I'm just gonna stitch right around my applique, right out on the outside. So I'm not even going to draw that in. Okay, B12 is another applique. Okay, she wants us to do X's. I'm not going to do that. Otherwise, I'm going to go right on the outside here. And then she wants us to come out and do that, an echo quilt out there. So if you can, you want to kind of bring it out and down. And out. So kind of like that. And I am freehanding this. All right, so going around each of these and then coming out here and doing the large echo quilting. Okay, B13. All right, we've got an X, and then we've got lines off the X. So let me get my X on here. This might be hard to see. Similar to one we already did in this row. Okay. So I've drawn a line right down the center to each corner, and then we have two lines beyond each one of those, and I think I'm going to go 1/2 inch. So I'm going to put it on the line I just drew and draw another 1/2 inch, and again put it my 1/2 inch on the line I just drew, and then we can do that over here. Whoops, I need a 1/2 inch, not a whole inch. And then we're going to do it on this one. All right, so we've got like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 16 square grid here in the middle with the lines that we're going to be stitching. All right, I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go back to my B1 and get ready to quilt. All right, I'm set up to quilt. Nothing has changed since the last time I was here, but I have turned my machine off and now I've turned it on, and I tested the quilting to make sure, off to the side, to make sure that it's still good. because I've done that before where nothing changed, but when I came back and turned it back on, it didn't want to cooperate. All right, so B1, remember, is the lines on the outside of each of the circles. So let's see. I can go down here and then I can come here and start working my way over to where I need to be to get all my lines without stopping. Again, I don't have my machine on super fast, so if I floor it, which I have a tendency to do, I won't go off the rails. And I always go with my needle down. There we go. That's A1, or B1 finished. So I'm just going to stitch in the ditch here. I'm going to cross over to B2. And now I'm going to do my stitching in the ditch. No, we don't stitch in the ditch, do we? We go down the middle, yeah. So I'm going to go over here and start going down the center. Let's see, I think I'll go back over where I came and then go on my line out here, over to here, and then I can stitch in the ditch, or not stitch in the ditch, that's what I want to call it. Just cross over to the other side, come back down, go over, and do it all over again. So I have all of those, so now I can just go all the way around. And I am covering my bases on some of these. There we go. That one's finished. All right. So I'm going to come up this seam and come over. And come down here, and I think I'll do my circle first and then I'll start doing my lines. I need to readjust what's on my lap because it's getting caught. All right, now I'm going to stitch in the ditch and then come over here and finish the lines. Okay, those lines are finished. I'm going to follow my circle here and come to the other ones. I'm just going to start with the first one I see. That's not perfect. It'll work. All right. I'm going to come across here and go over. I'm going to come over slightly, go down this seam, go over to this seam, and then I can start doing that. And that's what I'm going to do, is follow the seams until I get to a line. Do the center. All right, that block is done, so I'm going to try to follow the seams all the way out. Next block has the same outer square, so I think I will start there. Get a little adjusted here. All right, let's start our outer square. Go down the seam here and start my echo the best I can. I really can't even see the lines I drew. Go down the center. All right, that was pretty easy. Let's head over through seams to the next one. And we got another square on the outside. When I'm transitioning to the lines in the middle, I'm using seams, like a stitch in the ditch. Alright, there's all my quilting lines. So I'm going to use my seams to work my way out to get to the next block. Alright, so the next block, remember, was echo quilting. Not really even echo quilting, just go around the outside, and I'll just be enough on the outside of this one so I can come back and applique it. You know, jeez, I can't believe I missed that. All right, I forgot to hit record for 3 of these blocks, but I was starting this block, and I started on the outside, and I quilted around all of this on the outside. And so I think when I got over to here, I came through right here on the in between these 2 petals, did the inside, came back, and then came back out and down to this block. So this is 6, this is 7. I came down here and I echoed around the petal, came back up, came along this seam, did the big echo, and then went up this seam, down this seam to the next big echo, and came over and did the same thing and went around and did all the echoes like that. And then when I got done, came over here and I went straight and then came over and across and just kept crisscrossing my way until I got this done, came out. And then 9 is pretty easy. You're just stitching in the ditch in the, it's basically a 9 patch, so the seams of the 9 patch, and then coming in and doing the diagonal here. So I probably did the diagonal, came up, went across, maybe came down, did the diagonal, and then went wherever I needed to go to do that. So this one was pretty easy to do. But I did forget to hit record as I was actually doing it, so I wanted to come back and just kind of do an overview of how I was bringing my needle in and going around. Okay, let's finish this. Alright, that one is stitched. Not great, but it's stitched. Okay, I'm going to come up here, just go out and come over to this one. I think what I'll do is I'll stitch around my applique first. Okay, now I'll do my square. And then down the center. There we go. Next one is the around each applique, and then remember I did that large echo quilting on the outside. Alright, there's that one. Now this one has the horizontal lines on it. So let's get over to that one. Okay, I have enough to work with that I can turn my quilt. Stitch in the ditch over to the other lines, and with my needle down I'm going to turn it again. Take advantage of when you can do this, because it doesn't happen often with this quilt. It's a big one. There we go. That didn't take too long. Probably took as long to quilt it as it did to mark it. So I think what I'll do, turn my iron on, pull it all the way back to the beginning, and iron my lines. It's coming out nice. Is it perfect? No. But at least I hope that I give you permission to quilt your own quilt and love what you did and have it be all your work. The nice thing about this quilt is you're only working 4.5 inches at a time. And I think I like the way I was sending it through my machine better than I did with A. So I think I'll stick with that until I think I need to do something different when I get towards the middle of the quilt. Let's get that one up there. There we go. All right, so that's week 2, the B row, B1 through 13. How I did it, for the most part, I followed Dear Jane. A couple places I veered off. I do have, like I did when I was piecing this, I kind of have little rules. You know, I don't really want to sew through my applique through it. I want to sew around it. That's about it. But there you go. Check the links in the description down below for all the products that I use in this video to do my free motion quilting, and we'll be back with week 3, which is the C row, C1 through 13, and hit the subscribe button, notification bell, so you can get notified when I get all of this finished and you can see what it looks like. I appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!